Good morning, boys and girls, and happy Thursday, March 19th. I am here at home on the first day of spring. Make sure you go outside today and get some fresh air. It looks like it's going to be nice today. But for now, we're going to read chapter 17 of Charlotte's Web. And before I get to the chapter, I have a couple shout outs to give. I saw Bradley's family on the news last night. That was really cool, talking about his time at home. And I also saw a couple of kids. So far, Tyler and Levi, I've been able to view some of their work on Google Classroom. Tyler has turned in his roll and write story. And yesterday's chapter summary of Charlotte's Web, I saw Levi. He's turned in a couple of typing activities on Google Classroom. Good job. And I checked the Prodigy leaderboard, and I see Tyler way up at the top. So awesome job, Tyler. I see you're doing your work. I appreciate seeing you guys working so hard at home. It's like a little connection I have with you guys, so I'd like to check in and see what you guys are working on. So good job to those kiddos who I mentioned. I've also seen kids doing other activities. So Kyler, for example, I saw Kyler working in the kitchen with his mom. That's a wonderful activity to do. You can learn so much from cooking and measuring ingredients. I mean, baking is a science experiment on its own. So that was really cool to see as well. I appreciate all the updates I'm getting from families. Very cool to see. If you are following along on either a piece of paper and pencil or on Google Classroom, I have our format here that we're used to seeing in class when we do our chapter summaries. We have our opening sentence. At the end, we have our closing sentence. And boys and girls know the names of these types of words that starts with a T. They're called transition words. So if you are doing it pen to paper, you can go ahead and title your page. I'm also going to post a Google Doc on Classroom as soon as this is done, so you can go online and type your chapter summary if you would like. So you have two options. You can write it or you can type it. Either way, you've got the format right here. So if you need to pause the video for any reason, you can, but at this point, I think you guys know how to do this process, but I'll leave it up anyway. So we are going to be reading chapter 17. It's called Uncle. When they pulled into the fairgrounds, they could hear music and see the Ferris wheel turning in the sky. They could smell the dust of the racetrack where the sprinkling cart had moistened it, and they could smell hamburgers frying and seeing balloons aloft. They could hear sheep blatting in their pens. An enormous voice over the loudspeaker said, "Attention, please! Will the owner of a Pontiac car, license number H239, please move your car away from the fireworks shed?" "Can I have some money?" asked Fern. "Can I too?" asked Avery. "I'm going to win a doll by spinning it on a wheel and stop at the right number," said Fern. "I'm going to steer a jet plane and make it bump into another one." "Can I have a balloon?" asked Fern. "Can I have a frozen custard and a cheeseburger and some raspberry soda pop?" asked Avery. "You children be quiet till we get that pig pen unloaded," said Mrs. Arable. "Let the children go off by themselves," suggested Mr. Arable. "The fair only comes once a year." Mr. Arable gave Fern 2 quarters and 2 dimes. Ooh, do the math. How much is 2 quarters and 2 dimes? Pause it and try to figure that math out. He gave Avery 5 dimes and 4 nickels. "Now run along," he said. "And remember, the money has to last all day. Don't spend it all in the first few minutes. And be back here at the track at noontime so we can have lunch together. And don't eat a lot of stuff that's going to make you sick to your stomachs." "And if you go on those swings," said Mrs. Arable, "you hang on tight. You hang on very tight, you hear me?" "And don't get lost," said Mrs. Zuckerman. "And don't get dirty." "Don't get overheated," said their mother. "Watch out for pickpocketers," cautioned their father. "And don't cross the racetrack when the horses are coming," said Mrs. Zuckerman. The children grabbed each other by the hand and danced off in the direction of the merry-go-round, towards the wonderful music and the wonderful adventure and the wonderful excitement, and to the wonderful midway where they would be no parents to guard them and guide them, and where they could be happy and free and do as they pleased. Mrs. Arable stood quietly and watched them go. Then she sighed. Then she blew her nose. "Do you really think it's all right?" she asked. "Well, they've got to grow up sometime," said Mr. Arable. "And a fair is a good place to start, I guess." While Wilbur was being unloaded and taken out of his crate and into his new pig pen, crowds gathered to watch. They stared at the Zuckermans' famous pig. Wilbur stared back and tried to look extra good. He was pleased with his new home. The pen was grassy, and it was shaded from the sun by a shed roof. Charlotte, watching her chance, scrambled out of the crate and climbed to a post under the side of the roof. Nobody noticed her. Templeton, not wishing to come out in broad daylight, stayed quietly under the straw at the bottom of the crate. Mr. Zuckerman poured some skim milk into Wilbur's trough, pitched clean straw into his pen, and then he and Mrs. Zuckerman and the Arables walked towards the cattle barn to look at purebred cows and to see the sights. Mr. Zuckerman particularly wanted to look at tractors. Mrs. Zuckerman wanted to see a deep freeze. Lurvy wandered off by himself, hoping to meet friends and have some fun on the midway. And here's a picture of the fair there. As soon as the people were gone, Charlotte spoke to Wilbur. "It's a good thing you can't see what I see," she said. "What do you see?" asked Wilbur. "There's a pig in the next pin pen, and he's enormous. I'm afraid he's much bigger than you are." "Maybe he's older than I am, and he has more time to grow," suggested Wilbur. Tears began to come to his eyes. "I'll drop down and have a closer look," Charlotte said. Then she crawled along the beam till she was directly over the next pen. She let herself go down on a drag line until she hung in the air just in front of the pig's snout. "May I have your name?" she asked politely. The pig stared at her. "No name," he said in a big, hearty voice. "Just call me Uncle." "Very well, Uncle," replied Charlotte. "What is the date of your birth? Are you a spring pig?" "Sure, I'm a spring pig," replied Uncle. "What did you think I was, a spring chicken? That's a good one, huh, sister?" "Mildly funny," said Charlotte. "I've heard funnier ones, though. Glad to have met you, and now I must be going." She ascended slowly and returned to Wilbur's pig pen. "He claims to be a spring pig," reported Charlotte, "and perhaps he is. One thing is certain. He has a most unattractive personality. He is too familiar, too noisy, and he cracks weak jokes. Also, he's not anywhere as near as clean as you are, nor as pleasant. I took quite a dislike to him in our brief interview. He's going to be a hard pig to beat, though, Wilbur, on account of his size and weight, but with me helping you, it can be done." "When are you going to spin a web?" asked Wilbur. "This afternoon. Late, if I'm not too tired." There's Uncle and Charlotte having their conversation. "The least thing tires me these days. I don't seem to have the energy that I once had. My age, I guess." Wilbur looked at his friend. She looked rather swollen, and she seemed listless. "I'm awfully sorry to hear that you're feeling poorly, Charlotte," he said. "Perhaps if you spin a web and catch a couple of flies, you'll feel better." "Perhaps," she said wearily. "But I feel like the end of a long day." Clinging upside down to the ceiling, she settled down for a nap, leaving Wilbur very much worried. All morning people wandered past Wilbur's pen. Dozens and dozens of strangers stopped to stare at him and to admire his silky white coat, his curly hair, his kind and radiant expression. Then they would move on to the next pen, where the bigger pig lay. Wilbur heard several people make favorable remarks about Uncle's great size. He couldn't help overhearing those remarks, and he couldn't help but worry. And now, with Charlotte not feeling well, he thought, oh dear. All morning, Templeton slept quietly under the straw. The day grew fiercely hot. At noon, the Zuckermans and the Arables returned to the pig pen. Then, a few minutes later, Fern and Avery showed up. Fern had a monkey doll in her arms and was eating Cracker Jacks. Avery had a balloon tied to his ear and was chewing a candied apple. The children were hot and dirty. Isn't it hot? Said Mrs. Zuckerman. It's terribly hot, said Mrs. Arable, fanning herself with an advertisement of a deep freeze. One by one, they climbed into the truck and opened lunch boxes. The sun beat down on everything. Nobody seemed hungry. When are the judges going to decide about Wilbur? Asked Mrs. Zuckerman. Not till tomorrow, said Mr. Zuckerman. Lurvy appeared, carrying an Indian blanket that he had won. That's just what we need, said Avery. A blanket. Of course it is, replied Lurvy, and he spread the blanket across the sideboards of the truck so it was like a little tent. The children sat in the shade under the blanket and felt better. After lunch, they stretched out and fell asleep. Alrighty, boys and girls, so that was chapter 17 of Charlotte's Web. Tomorrow we'll do chapter 18, and just to show you guys, we are getting close to the end. We only have not so many chapters left. We're going to be on chapter 18 tomorrow. So again, if you are following along with paper, go ahead and get your chapter 17. You can put Charlotte's Web summary at the top. You guys are really creative with coming up with your opening sentences. So I don't think I need to help you too much with this. I know that you guys know this process really well. We do it every day in class, so I trust that you can follow along. If you need some reminders, we have our transition words here. And if you wanted to add another transition word, what word could you put? Can be somewhere in here, somewhere here. Also, you can include also if you wanted. That was another one that we had gone over in class. And then, of course, your closing sentence, which is basically restating your opening sentence so they can be pretty similar. Make sure you use a capital at the beginning of your sentence. Put a period at the end. What punctuation mark should you put at the end of these transition words? There's comma. Don't forget the comma. And when you are done, you can upload your typed version into Google Classroom, or if you're writing it on paper, ask a parent to take a picture of it, and you guys can send it to me as well. I would love to share your work with the class. So if I see you guys turning in work, you can maybe attach a note that you would like me to do a little shout out in the next video. So just get those chapter summaries in so I can see what you guys are working on. I'll have a new video this afternoon of some high frequency word practice. I hope you guys were able to see it yesterday. Before I go, I should mention that our YouTube channel does not allow for comments because it is a page for children. It wants to avoid any possible inappropriate stuff going on there, so it does not let us comment. But I'm putting all of these links in our Google Classroom, and you're welcome to make comments in the Google Classroom. So if you are watching this on YouTube, you cannot comment, but if you go to Google Classroom, you can comment, and you can upload pictures there, I believe, as well. If not, you can upload pictures into Dojo. Have a wonderful day, boys and girls. I hope you enjoyed this chapter. I'll see you tomorrow morning for chapter 18, but stay tuned for more videos today. Have a good one.